There are two ways we can go about understanding Christianity. One is the phenomenological approach, where one tries to step into the shoes of the believer to understand the believer's worldview. What is discovered here is what it means to be a Christian from a Christian's perspective. This viewpoint embraces an historical figure named Yeshua, or Jesus, who lived 2,000 years ago, as the Son of God and as a Redeemer figure. With baptism into this religion and living what is deemed a Christian lifestyle, one hopes to attain salvation into a heavenly realm after death. Having grasped how a Christian views Jesus and what is the goal of life to a Christian, the scholar of religion now needs to engage in a second approach to understanding Christianity. The second method is a scholarly assessment of this religion, where one critically analyzes the socio-historical context from which the religion arises. One is not interested if Jesus really is the Son of God, or if there's a place called heaven, for this is out of the realm of scholarship and it fits in the faith arena. But rather, the scholar of religion asks questions such as, how did the belief that Jesus is the Son of God arise in the first place? Was this a common belief in the first century, that humans can be divine? Did all the early Christians argue the divinity of Jesus, or did this concept develop later? Did Jesus himself argue for his own divinity? There is no doubt that this is a very sensitive subject if one is a believer. One is generally told not to ask such questions. However, scholars of religion are like detectives, never assuming that they know the answer. Instead, they try to let the historical evidence speak for itself, always willing to readjust the scholarship in light of new research. So here we go. Let us try this method and apply it to this religion, of course with hopes not to offend. First of all, we have to start from square one and ask the question, did Jesus historically exist? And when we were dealing with a religion that started 2,000 years ago, this is fair game. To answer this, we should go beyond the New Testament and find unbiased sources. And yes, there is indeed evidence from non-Christian sources, such as the Jewish historian Josephus and a couple of others, that Jesus did exist. Though do note that they wrote their material well after Jesus' death. The next question is, was the belief that a human can be divine a popular idea or meme in the first century? And it appears it was. An example of one declared human and divine was the adopted son of Julius Caesar, Octavius Augustus. While this idea did exist at the time of Jesus and it was applied to others, not all early Christians saw Jesus this way. In fact, there was so much disagreement and acrimony among the early Christian communities about who and what Jesus was that the Roman Emperor Constantine ordered the warring communities to hold a council and develop a cohesive position. The first council was held in 325 CE, and it is called the Council of Nicaea. Here, two prominent positions dominated the council. One was by Athanasius, who argued that Jesus was the Son of God and thus eternal. The other was held by Arius, who argued a completely different understanding of Jesus. He argued that Jesus was a remarkable human being and a model of spirituality, but was not divine. To say he was, Arius contended, was polytheism, belief in more than one God, and hence blasphemy. Though Athanasius received more votes at this council, it took over 60 years for the claim that Jesus was divine to stick. From this council, we get the Nicene Creed. Other councils followed, allowing Christians to discuss diverse theological positions, such as if Jesus was in fact divine, then was he actually ever human? And to vote on them. From a fluid, incoherent view of Jesus, an orthodox position was eventually formed over the course of several centuries. Some believers may point out that Jesus himself articulated his divinity, but this is certainly challenged with biblical scholarship. John Dominican Cresson, a renowned scholar of Christianity, argues that Jesus saw himself not as a redeemer figure or apocalyptic teacher like John the Baptist, but a social reformer seeking to annihilate the intense social inequalities of the time. When he ate and drank with prostitutes and sinners, he was sending a message of social change, what Cresson calls open commensality. And it is this that led to his death, being labeled a social rebel. The Son of Man title many say Jesus claimed, and not the Son of God, was perhaps referring to the Son of Humanity, one focused on repairing the social injustices of the day. Cresson and other biblical scholars do not simply utilize the New Testament in their research, but the plethora of other non-canonical texts, including a gospel that predates by decades the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and is the Gospel of Thomas. There is also the Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of Mary, etc., and these are generally called the Gnostic Gospels. They are Christian Gospels, though non-canonical, in that they were not accepted into the New Testament as it was formulated in the 4th century. Who first elevated Jesus to the divine status may have been Paul, who is actually recognized as the founder of Christianity. When he embraced non-Jewish, that is non-circumcised, into the newly forming group, he separated it from Judaism and thus began a new religion. Interestingly, Paul originally was a Pharisee Jew, and this form of Judaism, unlike the Sadducees, Zealots, and Essenes, argued for a resurrection of the dead. This Pharisee concept may have entered into Christianity via Paul, who applied it first to Jesus with the thought that a general resurrection of the dead would soon follow. Is this to say that scholars of religion do not think Jesus rose from the dead? Remember that such a claim is a belief claim and not a scholarly one. In this audio lecture, it would be near impossible to cover the history of Christianity in just a few minutes, but my goal has been to expose you to what biblical scholarship is all about. Investigating this religion academically offers one a fresh look at an ancient religion. Namaste.